Thank you for joining us on Cloudy with a Chance of Podcast. I'm Chief Meteorologist McCall Vrydaghs with my co-host Kirstie Zontini, and you can see our guest there in the frame as well, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. And some of you may even recognize her as well. But before we get to that, I just want to say, hey, Kirstie, how's everything going?
Hi, McCall. It's going really, really nice. I'm happy to be enjoying some summer heat, and we're going to be hot here in the Miami Valley.
Yeah, it's about to get steamy. We have those 90-degree temperatures ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, for us, like I've said it before, we've talked about this on the podcast before. In the Dayton area of the Miami Valley, 3 90-degree days in a row is considered a heat wave.
Yeah.
We've done that already this summer. We're likely going to do it again because it looks like well into next Wednesday, we could be tapping into those 90-degree days. So,
but we've had a pretty, in actuality, a pretty mild summer. I mean, we haven't hit our average number of 90-degree days. I think it's just been a bit humid a lot. So that's made it feel sticky and tropical. Yeah. But tropical helps us to pivot to our guest today because when you think of tropical humidity and heat, you want to be on a beach somewhere enjoying the weather. So I think, why don't we just get to our guest and why we are so excited to have her on today.
All right. Well, so our guest this week, which if you're looking at her already now, you are from the Miami Valley, you recognize this face because she is a former reporter for WHIO. This is Lauren Kroger. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being with us. Lauren has transitioned from the news world, and she now is in the travel world. So she is a luxury travel agent for Huffman Travel. She's been there for about 3 years, and Huffman Travel has an office right here in the Miami Valley in Oakwood. And Lauren, we are so excited to get to see you again. We miss seeing you, of course, in the newsroom, but you're going to help us out with our episode this week, which has to do with weather and making travel plans.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to be starting my Friday morning with you two, with friendly faces that I love and miss.
Well, we miss you so much. I mean, how has that, before we get to the travel part, the transition from news to doing luxury travel, and people, if they don't know her, Lauren did the news for us, but you were a big travel buff, at heart.
Right.
I've always loved travel. I mean, they're two different worlds. They're both two different dreams. So I'm super lucky that I've been able to pursue both. But I've always been just obsessed with traveling, everything from road trips with my family when I was younger to then starting to be able to travel myself a bit into college. I was a nanny in Italy just so that I could find a way to try to see the world. So I've always been really passionate about travel. So it was just an opportunity that I thought just fit me. So it's been amazing. Obviously, the last year and a half have been quite a roller coaster. So it's been interesting to ride that out, but we've learned so much from it. And I think that in some ways the industry is stronger because of it, because now people are turning to us to ask all of these questions, whereas before they felt like it was easier to navigate on their own. And I feel like if anything, it sort of solidified travel advisors as a really important piece of travel planning. So there are some definite silver linings to the craziness of the last year.
Yeah, I think everybody has learned something from this, pandemic. McCall and I have realized we could broadcast completely from, any remote location and cover severe weather and do live shots. So that was definitely something that the news business, I think, learned and had to adapt to. And I just want to talk a little bit with you first, Lauren, about that wild ride when it comes to COVID and what that did for luxury travel. And also, that's kind of intimidating, by the way, hearing luxury travel agents. So why don't you explain what you do exactly to people that might not be very familiar?
Sure. That's a great way to start. So essentially, I just help people plan the trips of, what their dreams is what we try to do. But that can be everything from, just a hotel here or there to a huge trip for a multi-generational family who's always wanted to go back to their ancestral home in Ireland. So we do a little bit of everything. Our niche is luxury. So basically that means that we're part of a larger network of travel agencies across the United States who just have really good, everyone has to have a specific area where they say, I'm really close with these partners. I can really leverage this group. And so, we're really close with a lot of luxury partners, but yeah, it's so much fun to work with people still in the Miami Valley and around the world, and just to help them to be able to travel again, especially this year, has just been so rewarding because people are so excited to be able to get back out there. Of course, some Delta variant concerns now, but just people seem to take it, they don't take it for granted anymore to be able to get out with their family.
So,
good point.
I mean, when people are planning for these vacations, are you helping guide them to the best locations? I imagine not everybody knows where they want to go. They say, I want this, 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 and that's where you come in.
Absolutely. All the time we get requests of, well, we really want R&R, but also, we like to be able to see cultural things and we love good food. And it's like, well, it doesn't narrow things down so much. So it's fun. I mean, the first step of every trip request, if we don't already know the clients, is just to try to get to know who they are as people, because a lot of times that helps point them in the right direction and maybe suggest a destination that they've never even thought of before. But of course, weather does play a part in that conversation too, depending on when they want to travel. And, everything from at this time of year, this destination is more expensive. So there's so many factors that go into it, especially when a client doesn't necessarily know for sure, oh, I definitely want to go to Hawaii. So it's fun. To me, that's one of the most fun parts, because you get to introduce people to destinations that in some cases I've had people say to me, I don't even know where that is. But I was probably in the same boat when I started in the industry with some of these further flung places. So
I'm curious, because you sparked a thought in my head. When you were in the news industry, there's news and there's weather. So you would come and ask me, hey, what's the weather going to be like today?
Right.
Do you feel like you've learned a little bit more about weather patterns around the world? So if someone's saying they want to do a Bahamas vacation in the middle of August, and you're like, okay, well, that's possible. But you could also do a tropical vacation somewhere where a hurricane's not going to smack you. Like, do you feel like or it's monsoon season somewhere?
Right.
Do you feel like you've learned more?
Oh yeah, I've learned so much, but that's so hard because I'm not a scientist like you guys. So it's a lot of research. It's a lot of talking with partners who are based in those destinations. And then as I'm selling them a lot, I know, but there are so many places like Thailand, Costa Rica, South Africa, just to name a few, where even within those countries, there are, different microclimates, or at one part of the year, you can visit this coast, but not the other because of the, monsoon season or whatever it may be. So it's really challenging to learn all of that. And I think we never know the weather in every place at every time of the year. But it's great to be able to leverage contacts and say, okay, tell me the truth. What's it like in April and X, Y, and Z? So, but yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around. And I think, it's fascinating to me. I've become sort of a weather nerd. So I get why you guys.
Well, that makes sense.
This is so interesting.
Well, even just down to okay, we booked your trip to this location. This is the type of weather that you can prepare for during this time of the year. So if you're going to go to a place that's 90 degrees and dry every day, these are the kind of clothes maybe that you should wear, or supplies that you should bring with you.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Totally. And in some cases we might say, yeah, maybe I wouldn't go for a full day tour on that day because it's going to be really hot while you're there. Or maybe you might want to consider going to this region of the country instead because, during the winter months, it's really hard to get through here. So there's just so many different factors to consider. But I think that, in a lot of cases too, it's not necessarily something where it will totally prevent someone from going, but it's just about setting the expectation, because we get so many honeymooners in the summer months who want to go to a beach, and it's hurricane season in the Caribbean. So it's just a matter of, like you said, McCall, saying, well, we could also go to a beach somewhere else, or just setting the expectation that, maybe this island, it's typically not in the path of hurricanes as often as, the Virgin Islands. So there's a lot of that back and forth that happens.
I will say, Lauren, too, my parents they booked a cruise, and that was a huge question my mom had was, well, I'm going to Bermuda. So are we going to have rains? Is there going to be a hurricane? And I mean, even as a meteorologist, I looked up like climatologically what are typical formation and or paths that we see in October, because there are regions that, and McCall, you know this, that are kind of favored more, like whether it's more of Gulf development or they ride in the Atlantic certain months of the summer. I mean, this is the average or what could happen. Obviously, I told my mom, like, I can't tell you if there's going to be on your date. So yeah, I guess kind of managing those expectations, I would assume, is part of your job as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard also to say what you said, whereas at this time of the year, there can be, can be overcast or, you can get some rain, but then, God forbid clients come back and say it downpoured every day. It's in some cases with those weather patterns, we can't tell you a month out for sure what it's going to be like. We can just say, normally it's this, but you should still have some sun, or normally it's this. So, things like that do happen. So it's just a matter of saying, this is what it's like this time of year. And you just have to be prepared that, things are not as predictable as, we want them to be in some parts of the world. So I think people for the most part understand that. Oh yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely. I've never had anyone get mad at me about weather, thank God, because
good.
And I know that it's happened to some advisors, but no, I've got, everyone is so sweet. I mean, I also have never had a terrible situation. And I even had honeymooners in St. Lucia when the hurricane hit in what was that 4th of July weekend. And so but they were great. I mean, they just worked through it. We work with the hotels, and they had travel insurance, which was huge for them. So, everything works out. It's just a matter of staying in touch and communicating and making sure everyone's okay through it. So
I have a question about travel insurance. I am not super well versed, obviously, in travel. So if you are booking and helping a family or a couple book their trip, I guess what can travel insurance do? And is there anything weather-wise that it protects a traveler against or from?
Yeah. So I recommend it for every single trip, but that's only because I've seen so many cases where things go wrong, even from, you guys, I'm sure have heard or experienced how crazy flights are right now. We still have a lot of planes that are grounded, and I'm nervous about the winter months because I think when we start getting big storms, it's just such a domino effect that if your plane was on the other side of the country and weather where you are is fine, if it can't get to you, you still may not be getting to your destination for a day or two. And I've seen that happen this summer already. So fingers crossed that this winter is all right. But so for example, my clients who had that happen this summer, they arrived at their hotel and they were already in non-refundable penalty. So at that point, if you don't have travel insurance, it's down to us to just beg and plead with the hotel and say, look, this was out of their control, please refund them. So great when they do have travel insurance, because then you're covered. And that just falls under what they would call trip interruption coverage. So, you do have to read the fine print because, some policies aren't as inclusive as others. And a lot of the details change because, for example, like most travel insurance companies won't cover things like they have these exclusions that would include everything from a global pandemic to, a terrorist attack to a natural disaster. So then you really have to dig in and say, in the case of my clients who are in St. Lucia, I immediately reached out to our insurance rep and said, okay, so what's covered, what's not, how do we get the most for them? And he was great, who, helped me make sure that they had their extra room nights that they had to pay for covered. But it is really tricky. So you have to read the fine print and you have to make sure you know what you're buying.
It also seems nice that having a travel agent like you kind of are working for your client. Like you're the one, like you said, that called the insurance and worked, rather than you're on your honeymoon and you're in the middle of St. Lucia trying to like call and figure out what covered.
Yeah, that is true. And it's nice to just have someone there too, because if you're calling the 1-800 number,
it can take hours and hours to get through. So again, the biggest thing for me is just having someone I can call directly and just, having them be able to help us through it.
So you've been to a lot of places and all types of weather. What is one place that you've been to that had the most extreme weather that you've experienced in your travels?
Ooh, I've never been to any super cold weather destination. I would love to. So I'll go the opposite direction. I'm really into, as you guys know, Africa and safari and African cities. And so I went to Zambia in October, which for them is the hottest month of the year. And when I say hot, I mean average of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that was, I love the heat. So I didn't have too much of an issue with it. And it wasn't a super humid heat. So for me, at a certain point, I'm like, you know what, whatever, it's fine. It's fun. This is amazing. We're so lucky to be here. But my husband, on the other hand, he never is going back to Zambia in October again. Loved it, but it's not for him in, the hottest month of the year.
So how do you prepare for something like that?
Well, I mean, if you look at the US, Arizona this summer has been crazy, crazy hot. I had clients who went in June thinking it would not quite be at that level, and they were just, I mean, it was the week of the heat wave. And so they were really they were great. They were still doing bike tours and through the canyons, but it's hot. So I think just preparing, I mean, they knew it would be warm. I think they hoped it wouldn't be over 100, but they knew it would be warm. And so they had plenty of layers, plenty of sunscreen, plenty of water to drink throughout the day. And they had guides with them, as they were hiking to make sure they were safe and that no one was showing signs of not feeling well. So they took all of the right precautions, but this time of year, that's so common across the US where you really have to be careful.
Yeah.
Especially with those 3 straight 90-degree days you guys were talking about. In Dayton, Ohio, got to be careful.
Yeah, 9 is nothing compared to Zambia. But so I have another question for you, because you kind of mentioned this earlier, Lauren, about partnerships that you have with, resorts, hotels around the world. Obviously, there are natural disasters that occur all over McCall. We know even just wildfires out west, how that really hurt and damaged wine country. So do you work with any of these regions that maybe they're trying to repair and come back from wildfires or a hurricane that really caused a lot of coastal damage? Obviously, tourism is huge for not only our country, but other countries as well. So I guess what sort of partnerships do you ever have, or do you have any in mind specifically that maybe you've worked with that were recovering from a natural disaster and kind of wanted to let people know, hey, it's safe again, please come?
Absolutely. So we have really been trying to promote wine country, Napa Valley this year, just because they were hit really, really hard. There's a hotel there called Meadowood that we work really closely with, and they had some really extensive damage. They were just able to reopen. Actually, it would have been just a few days ago. So we're really hoping that we can, I know that we already have some people headed there this fall, which is kind of peak harvest season for them. But you think about one thing that that I think the world realized about the industry is how many people are involved in tourism in one aspect or another. So when COVID hit, it was probably one of the hardest hit industries. And to see the ripple effect of, so you're not just talking travel agents, you're not just talking, airlines or hoteliers, but all the way down from people who, the CEOs that were resigning and things like that. But then you have people, who are supporting their families, whether it's concierge, whether it's housekeeping, whether it's sales. And that's for tour guides, even wineries that weren't being visited anymore. So many different aspects. So we're hopeful that we can get some people out to Napa and try to support them this year. And then after the Australia wildfires, we work really closely with the tourism board in Australia. So one of our advisors actually, when it was safe to go over there, one of our advisors went with the tourism board on a trip that was specifically meant to support Australia post wildfires. So it was a group of travel advisors from around the world, and they met with some of the different firefighters, and they went to areas that had been affected. And then of course they just tried to learn about Australia and all of the great things that it has to offer so that they could potentially get people to come back. Because one thing that country said that they really needed more than anything was tourism, because that's how they get so much of their money and are able to recover. Unfortunately, Australia has been completely, borders closed, and probably won't reopen until maybe spring of 2022. So it's going to be another destination when it does reopen. It's going to be so important to get people back there so that they can finally really tackle that recovery.
Have you seen a lot of places like day to day with the COVID pandemic happening, of allowing people and then not allowing people? And how does that impact people that are set to travel? I mean, panic, if I had a trip to Europe, in the fall coming right now. And like you said, insurance has a lot of things that say, hey, pandemic, you're not going to get your money back. How do you handle something like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, that is still 80% of what I'm doing day to day, just because, now we have the Delta variant in every destination. In Europe specifically, we saw countries reopen borders. And then even if their borders are still open, many of them have said, okay, well, but you need this, this, and this to get even into a restaurant or into a museum. And in some cases, it's relatively easy. If you're vaccinated, you're just flashing your vaccine card. It's not really a big deal. But in other cases, it's so restrictive that, they may not be accepting the CDC vaccine card. They're only accepting the EU vaccine. So, just understanding and keeping on top of that, because it truly still is changing week by week. But I think for the most part, we are finally on what feels like, it's not full steam ahead by any means. It's still kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I think for the most part, we're finally on the road to recovery. I think in the US specifically, people are traveling, throughout the United States without too many concern in terms of, being able to do things when they're gone. But of course, there's still health concerns for people who are immunocompromised. So I think it's just understanding who your client is, where they are in life, what their background is. Our clients in California, they haven't traveled much yet. Our clients in southern states cannot wait to go. So, things change depending on where you are in the country, depending on, do you have a parent who's older and maybe you're really concerned about their health and their primary caregiver. Those people still don't feel comfortable traveling, and you have to respect that. But then for people who do and want to do it safely, we really try to, if they feel more comfortable being outdoors, we look at outdoor destinations. If they don't want to be around other people and want to be in a home and never see another person in a hotel, they don't have to see another person in a hotel. So it's just understanding what they want. And some people just want normalcy again. And obviously, we can do that too.
I think it's funny, and this is a little bit off topic, but more personal to you. I just remember when you went to go work for Huffman Travel, and it was going to be like a year-long training, to learn how everything works there. And then everything just changed. And I just can't believe the acceleration and the learning curve that you must have gone through, and to be where you are now, to have all that information and all of those rules that you're probably trying to learn are like thrown out the window.
I joke that I've been in this industry for almost 3 years, but I still haven't really worked as a travel advisor. Of course, that's not true. Totally. But I haven't worked as a travel advisor under normal conditions, I should say. Who knows? I mean, some things are permanently changed. But I think that it's been this level of learning. I hope that we never have to go through something like this again. But I mean, I can't imagine anything that would have forced me to learn the way that this did. Because, we've all been working from home. So we've been kind of, we're still working as a team, but it's been a lot of just kind of figure it out. The whole world has just been figuring it out as we. So, from that perspective, it's been a huge learning opportunity. And with the downtime, all those partners I was talking about, we were having Zoom dates and doing, all kinds of different things with them. So in some ways, I feel like I got more face-to-face, even if it was electronic, more face-to-face time with partners around the world, because everyone discovered how great Zoom is. So, but yeah, it's wild. Hopefully 2022 will be my first, year of feeling like this is what it's normal work in this industry normally.
Right. So maybe one last question for you, Lauren, and it could just be kind of explaining, but I guess for someone that might be on the fence of working through an agency, like having someone, a travel agent guide them, especially now with, like you said, COVID and everything is maybe one country could be fine and another. And I know just from experience of a friend that had worked with you, her honeymoon changed like 18 times because it was in the heart of COVID. So, if someone's on the fence, I guess, what are some of the benefits of having a guide? And honestly, it seems like kind of a representative of getting them out and or changing those plans fast.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing during COVID or outside of COVID is just having someone who will go to bat for you and who does have personal relationships. So you're not necessarily working through a random wholesaler or online trying to get through to customer service, then reaching out to a hotel. There are just so many, layers, or even if you're booking directly through a hotel, you may not necessarily know the sales director's first name and the name of their kids and what they do in the winter. So it's kind of, not to say that we know that level of detail about every single hotel everywhere in the world, because that would be a lie. But in terms of, a lot of the properties that we are booking often because we feel like they're just great and that people always love them, we do have that level of relationship. So I think that's the biggest thing, whether you're talking about COVID or not. I mean, we do offer, extra amenities and things like that, which are great. But I think what COVID has taught is that really none of that stands up to the importance of relationships, whether you're getting free breakfast or not. So, yeah. And I think we've received so many first-time clients through this, people who said, I've never even considered using a travel advisor, but I'm just so overwhelmed, which I totally get. I would be in the same boat.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners or watchers want you to be their travel advisor or Huffman Travel in general, how can they get a hold of you?
So you can go to our website, huffmantravel.com, and send us a request there, or you can email me personally as well. Just Lauren@huffmantravel.com. I would love to help anybody out who's thinking about travel. I know it's a lot to figure out right now, but it's probably more exciting than ever after being cooped up for so long.
And I would say, go ahead.
Oh, the social media account, because yes. I'm pretty sure I follow maybe Huffman Travel on Instagram and a lot of beautiful pictures.
Of the social media, so the fact that I didn't push that out there right away. Did I work with other people? So yes, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, at Huffman Travel. Very simple.
And I was going to say, if you are someone that wants to go to Africa, Lauren is definitely the one that you want to reach out to find out about that. Her photos are amazing. You can have breakfast with giraffes and elephants, and I live vicariously through you. I mean, I'm sitting at my desk and I see your Instagram or Huffman Travel Instagram, and I'm just like, oh, that looks great.
I'm beyond lucky to be able to do those things. That's for sure.
Oh man. Well, thank you for joining us, Lauren. And as always, thank you for subscribing and listening to Cloudy with a Chance of Podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, the podcast app on your Apple or Android phone. You can also watch the video version on WHIO.com, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. And we also now have a YouTube page. Just look for Cloudy with a Chance of Podcast. As always, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you, ladies.